In this video, I'm going to do a quick unboxing and share my honest, raw first impressions and thoughts about the new Nothing Headphone 1. So if you're new here to recordingnow.com, we're on a mission to create the most comprehensive database of honest, unbiased headphone and wireless earbud reviews, which we purchase every single product reviewed on the website and on the channel with our own money to try to maintain as unbiased of an opinion as possible. And I want to make a quick note about the Nothing Headphone 1, which is these were available for pre-order July 4th. Now, there was already a lot of sponsored content and influencers who were receiving their free copy for review, and that content came out weeks ago. After I pre-ordered this July 4th, they said they would ship them out July 15th. Now, they created shipping labels July 15th, but the shipper did not receive the product until July 19th, and I received my copy July 21st. I purchased this straight from the website just like any other average normal person, and so I'm just giving my thoughts the day after I received them, which is now July 22nd. So just a quick note, if you're watching videos about the Nothing Headphone 1 and it was released weeks ago and pretty much before July 21st, I would say is some of the earliest that you could get your hands on these headphones as an actual paying customer. I just thought that's important to note. The Sony XM6 was much quicker between when you could order them, when the sponsored content came out, and when you could get your hands on them. And it was many weeks before I got my hands on the Nothing Headphone 1. So with that said, let's do the unboxing and let's do some quick sound comparisons and impressions versus headphones like the new Sony XM6, the Bowers & Wilkins PX7S3 as well. So let's begin. That was a little trickier than I expected it to be. We have this nice white box here. You can see we have this embossed material here on the top. So we're just going to open this up, shake that open. Voila. Okay, cool. So we have this square case right here, and the material reminds me a lot of the Sonos Ace actually. All right, so here is the Sonos Ace case, and I'm assuming that this is some kind of recycled material right here. It kind of feels a little bit like felt. You can see that the Sonos Ace case is a little bit smaller, and this might be a great headphone to compare to because I believe the prices have gone down a bit on the Ace. So looking at the case, it's nice. It's a little wide. Honestly, it's like pretty skinny, but it's wide as far as, you know, it's squarish and it takes up a decent amount of space. So let's open this up right here. Ooh, look at that. Wow. Initial impression is this looks like a headphone that costs more than $299 retail. And they just look really cool. We take the headphones out, and so I'm just handling them. And my initial visual inspection was that they look very high quality. They look kind of similar to the AirPods Max. When you actually feel the materials and you do feel the plastic around the headband, that's where you start to realize, okay, they are expensive here on the ear cups, but then, you know, from the bottom up, they are a bit cheap feeling for sure in the headband. So I'm hoping that maybe underneath the headband there is some metal at the core, but I'm not holding my breath there. The hinges right here, they feel solid, but at the same time it just looks like all plastic. So I do kind of worry about the durability of these in the long term. Typically headphones in the $200 to $300 range, they don't have the best build quality. So you know, just seeing these for the first time, I say that the ear cups themselves look really cool, but then the rest of the headphone, like I would say 50-60% of it is a bit on the cheaper end. Okay, so anyways, that is my first just impression of getting them right out of the case. If we feel the ear pad cushion, so I do have to try wearing these next, but my initial impression is the ear pad cushions feel pretty good. The headband cushion does feel pretty good as well. This seems to be kind of a pleather material right here. I don't see any grain on the ear pad cushion, so these do remind me of the pleather on the Sony XM6. Which, you know, for the price is to be expected. They do feel good though, so I'm going to try these on real quick and we'll just see, you know, how they feel initial impression straight from the factory. Yep, so comfort wise, very good. Straight from the factory, not too much clamping force, unlike the Sony XM6, and any clamping force that is there is probably going to loosen up over time. The cushions are right where they need to be as far as the headband cushion to relieve top of head pressure. The ear pad cushions, they feel pretty supportive. So these are probably going to be between a 4.5 to a perfect 5 out of 5 comfort score once we do the full review. They feel great so far. So that's basically the quick unboxing, and just to see if there's, any cables included as well, let's just open up this little box. We do have 2 cables. We have a stereo cable end to end, and then we have a USB-C charging cable as well. So we're just gonna drop these in the case, take them out, and so that's basically the raw first impressions of the Nothing Headphone 1 right out of the box. I like the way that they look. We'll see how they look on when you wear them on the head, but it looks like these will have a decent form and a decent silhouette, as far as they don't stick out much, which I really like when it comes to style. Obviously they stick out when it comes to their design, but we'll see. I'm gonna try them on. I'm gonna listen to them for a little bit, run them through the usual songs that I like to run them to, and then I'm going to share my initial raw, unbiased sound impressions and do a little bit brief comparisons. All right, y'all, I just finished up my usual battery of songs that I run these headphones through, multiple different genres from classical to pop, hip hop, rock, metal, and basically my honest thoughts on the Nothing Headphone 1 is overall, all right, we have good news and we have bad news. So the good news is that these headphones sound very good. My initial impression of these is quite positive, okay? And there's a lot of things I want to point out that we can actually look forward to, because these are showing us a lot of potential even from my initial impression. Now, the bad news is if you've purchased headphones like the Sony XM6 or the Bowers & Wilkins PX7S3 even, okay, we have a new contender here, all right? So that is the honest truth. We have a new contender that really kind of puts things into flux, if you ask me, because the sound quality here, from what I'm hearing, and the reason why I was personally interested in these headphones, let me point this out, and this is the number one reason that, I thought this was interesting. Sound by Kef, okay? So if you don't know, Kef makes some of the best speakers in the market right now. So this is a brand that is really respected, but not necessarily known for the headphones. I do believe they actually have a headphone of their own. Now, I read up a little bit about the collaboration with Nothing and with this headphone in particular. Now, they tuned these headphones, okay? So they're behind the sound, and I believe they also helped in the engineering of the dynamic driver that these feature. So that's a very good sign that the Nothing Headphone 1 is going to be excellent, which I kind of had a feeling, but at the end of the day, you never know until you actually hear a headphone, test it for yourself. And in my case, testing it against pretty much every headphone in the class, or having spent hundreds of hours testing these other headphones, I'm familiar with most of them. And I gotta say that where I would just gut instinct put the Nothing Headphone 1 is it's above the XM6, all right? But that's probably not, anything spectacular to most people, because the XM6 is more for its all-around just being an excellent noise-canceling headphone, not necessarily its sound quality being, really the best. Because to be honest, we have headphones like the PX7S3 at the same price that is clearly higher sound quality. Okay, now I do put the Nothing Headphone 1 in contention with the Bowers & Wilkins PX7S3, and in some cases, I might slightly prefer it. I might slightly prefer the S3. But the reason why I think that the Nothing Headphone 1 has a ton of potential left is because this has the most advanced EQ built into the app that I've seen. Because not only does it have a lot of bands, but it also has the ability to control the Q parameter, which I haven't seen in graphical parametric EQs for most of the headphones in this class. So basically what that means is you can really fine-tune the sound of the Nothing Headphone 1, which is why I think it might even surpass the PX7S3 for sound, and at least for enjoyment of sound, because I think the hardware is quality. What I'm hearing is crisp, it's detailed, it has proper dynamics, okay? It's not the biggest, widest soundstage. Like, we do have headphones that are even cheaper, like the Cambridge Audio P100, which is a very excellent sounding headphone, I believe for $240 brand new. Maybe it's $270 depending on the sales and the price. I do think that the P100 out of the box does sound better than the Nothing Headphone 1 and the PX7S3 for that matter. It's one of the best sounding wireless headphones, especially for the money. I don't think you can beat it. But that said, the EQ on the Nothing Headphone 1 is going to be more effective than the 5-band EQ on the PX7S3, which, to be honest, yes, it gets the job done to fix, in my opinion, and make it a little more balanced, that V-shaped sound profile out of the box, but that 5-band EQ is still very limited. Now, the Nothing Headphone 1 not only has that very advanced EQ and the hardware to support that so that it responds well to the EQ, but one more X factor is the fact that it has this bass enhancer. Now, that sounds super gimmicky. I get it. And it's ironic because I just reviewed the Skullcandy Crusher ANC2, which is a very high volume selling headphone, very popular headphone that has a crusher bass technology patented by Skullcandy that basically vibrates and shakes the headphone to give the bass, more of a feeling of the sound, and just make it more engaging and exciting, which is a fun little novelty. Okay. Now, when I turn on the bass enhancement on the Nothing Headphone 1, basically the bass does have, it gets boosted to a level where you start to feel it a little bit, not as much as the Skullcandies, of course, but, it has a lot of bass here. It's really fun. You combine the bass enhancement with the super advanced EQ, I think these have the potential to sound better than the PX7S3, okay, potential-wise. But if we're talking out of the box, if I were to critique it, I would say, again, the soundstage is not the most wide, not the most spacious, but the separation, the layering, it's all there. I'm hearing the details, okay? Now, if I had to guess what the average casual listener will hear when they hear these headphones right out of the box, they probably might think it is a boring sound profile and sound signature, which, to me is a little bit neutral-ish. Okay, I find it to be engaging and exciting once you really spend time to get used to the sound and you can hear all the details. And for me, I'm a sucker for the details. I like a neutral, bright headphone, and these to me kind of fit more of my preference out of the box. But I'll admit, they might be boring for some people. And again, I think you turn on bass enhancement, turn it up to level 4, you add some EQ, and I think you can make these very, very exciting. You can make these whatever you want them to be honest. And I think that the hardware supports it. Good headphones and good hardware responds well to EQ. If a headphone doesn't respond well to EQ, it exposes the hardware, essentially, in this class of headphones that I've tested thus far. Okay, so in the gist, very positive. And we have a contender. So I don't know where in the grand scale of things yet. We have to spend more time with this headphone, really give it a chance to shine, really dial it in. But my initial impression is very positive, which is actually different from my raw first impressions video of the XM6, ironically. When I did my first impressions video of the XM6, and at the time the channel had 500 subscribers, so basically I was just sharing my harsh, kind of like honest thoughts, which I actually think was very accurate. Looking back at what I was saying about the XM6, I think in some ways that was more accurate than spending even more time with the XM6 dialing in EQs to make it better and to make it, more listenable. I think that the raw first impressions in some ways was actually just the most honest and the most accurate. Now, with the Nothing Headphone 1, my impressions are very positive as the first impression versus the XM6. So if anything, I think that's an indicator that these are only going to sound even better. So at $300, I'm happy with this purchase. I think the noise canceling, just my raw first impressions of that, I think it's anywhere from slightly above average. I wasn't hearing anything that I haven't really heard from the XM6 or even the PX7S3. So noise canceling might be anywhere from average to slightly above average. It's decent, nothing crazy to me. But the sound quality is the thing that, for $300, another headphone that we need to bring up here and I'm looking around for. All right, for the life of me, couldn't find the Sennheiser Momentum 4. So basically, at $300, the Momentum 4 is immediately the headphone that jumps to mind. Now, for sound quality, I do think that these are competing with each other. It's not like outright better than the Momentum 4. Like, don't go rushing to sell your Momentum 4 just to get the Nothing Headphone 1. But I will say that the Nothing Headphone 1 is intriguing to me as far as listening to and offering a slightly different flavor. Now, as far as sound quality, the pure sound quality and more of the audiophile technicalities, I will say the Momentum 4 is still totally competitive with the Nothing Headphone 1 for the same price, if not maybe even a little cheaper depending on the day. So that to me is even more impressive for the Momentum 4, but I do think that the noise canceling and just the fact that there's a lot of potential with the Nothing Headphone 1, I just think that it's an exciting headphone that should seriously be considered. So this is one that I want to bring up. Now, another headphone that I probably want to bring up, and we'll talk more about, is going to be the Apple AirPods Max, of course. So obviously price-wise, $550 brand new, but these days, when they're on sale, like on Prime Day, they got to $400 brand new for the USB-C version. Honestly, for the money, and if you're in the Apple ecosystem, like, you can't argue with that kind of build quality and the overall package and the ease and the convenience of the AirPods Max. But anyways, sound quality wise, I think for $300, you're getting more sound quality with the Nothing Headphone 1. And basically with the EQ and the customization, you're able to have more versatility, right? Now, with the AirPods Max, though, it's still a very interesting and exciting sound right out of the box. It doesn't need EQ to be enjoyed, to be honest. It's going to be a very interesting sort of alternative, the Nothing Headphone 1, especially if you're not in the Apple ecosystem. I mean, why pay all that extra money? I will say the build quality is just in another league, whereas, the Nothing Headphone is just pretty much plastic, whereas the AirPods Max, you got the stainless steel, you have the aluminum, right? So that is, in a gist, my overall thoughts on the Nothing Headphone 1. I'm pretty impressed. I think this exceeded my expectations when it comes to the sound. Wireless noise-canceling headphones are at a place right now that is so exciting to me. I think that these headphones continue to push innovation, and they continue to just push the limit of not only the noise canceling performance, which is starting to hit some kind of diminishing returns, I do think, but the actual sound quality gets better and better. And, we have here things like the Focal Batiste, which is quite a bit older now at this point, but is one of those headphones that push forward the standard when it comes to creating audiophile experiences in wireless noise canceling packages, which is just really a tough task to do compared to wired headphones, right? That can benefit from things like a headphone amp, okay? And just using a wired cable, not having that loss in the quality of the source audio, right? So overall, the Nothing Headphone 1, very positive. If there's anyone who has any, feedback, thoughts, or questions about the Nothing Headphone 1 or any of these other headphones, leave in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I'm curious other people's thoughts about the Nothing Headphone 1 if you're able to get your hands on them this early. Let me know what you think. And if you have any of these other headphones, I'm curious to hear comparisons that people have. But what's next is going to be my full review comparing the Nothing Headphone 1 to most of its direct competitors and the headphones in the premium wireless noise canceling class. I'm really excited for that. I'm going to spend some time to really get to know these headphones better, but it's very positive so far. So if you want to see that, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because that video should come by the end of the week or by next week. I'm going to give it a lot of time and a lot of thoughts to go through the usual tests, but I'm really excited to see where these land. I really have no clue how good these are going to be, but it's probably going to be up there. We'll just have to try it out. But adding this to the mix of the contenders right now, it's so competitive. Like, all these brands, they all have their unique strengths and weaknesses, and no headphone is perfect. That's, I guess, the one silver lining for any of these headphones trying to contend, any of these brands, is like, no headphone that I've reviewed yet, and there's over 30 plus headphones reviewed on the website, none of them are perfect yet. So we still have a ways to go, and I'm still hearing improvements when it comes to sound quality for the price and for the money especially. So I'm pretty excited about this class of headphones. I am excited to get more into wireless earbuds as well, which is something that I have been working on and people have been requesting. So if there's any wireless earbuds you want to hear me review or talk about, let me know in the comments below as well. But that's all I have for today. So stay tuned for that full review of the Nothing Headphone 1. But I'm excited to see where these land. And if you want to watch more videos, going to link them here so you can check them out. Take care.